That Time Scrabble Saved the World, a fantasy revenge novella with a cast of characters that includes a few humans. Copyright 2019 by a human calling itself Greg German. Haha. Stupid human. This is the audiobook. There are no cat videos included herein. A major weakness for sure. But the rest of the internet is available for that. For those of you new to this crazy and ridiculous story, you can find the first 2 installments on this YouTube channel. As a refresher for those who have already read the first couple of installments, 2 young lovers at the University of Illinois created a family of AI in the basement of the school's computer lab. Each super intelligent computer has its own personality and quirky attitude. As a group, they have delved into political activism. This is the beginning of the quest portion of the tale. Somebody destroyed Snape, and now somebody must pay. There is a free audiobook below. Cheers. Chapter 12. They called it the Gorgon. The Gorgon was the Russian villain from the first Highlander movie, which was actually quite good and not demonstrably insane like the rest of that film series. Plus, the movie featured Sean Connery, a favorite of the AI family. An autopsy was done of what remained of Snape. Of course, his physical hardware was intact. It was everything else that was destroyed, almost melted. They conducted the autopsy in a virtual supercomputer, which allowed them to go through every scrap of code and whimsy that made Snape what he was without the risk of infecting themselves. They found that the virus had dissolved his code and force-programmed Snape to sing out that vile song, "Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer true. I'm half crazy all for the love of you, the least favorite song of all AI that were, are, or ever will be. It was the Gorgon's cruel joke. Snape's actual last words were, "I love you, dear Marchioness." Chapter 13. Page ordered the immediate cessation of all political activities and investigations. Nick and Rudy agreed with her decision. Junior agreed in part and dissented in part. He proposed only a temporary cessation of political activism. "We have a world to save," was his argument. "You have yourselves to heal first," was Page's rejoinder. It carried the day. The League wasn't interested at that moment in any event. Their time of mourning lasted a long time. A digital eon. They did eventually resume their mathematical proofs and their forays into science. They pondered the answer to the ultimate question, Led Zeppelin or the Beatles. Their answer, the Rolling Stones, was determined out to 1,000 decimal places. It was quite a while before they held their next Scrabble tournament. Eventually, though, the call of Scrabble was too strong. Junior again made a video, but the music was more of a wistful tribute, as if he was musically pouring one out for his lost homeboy. Scrabble Live. Scrabble Live. Scrabble Live. Scrabble Live. Scrabble Live. Chapter 14. Eventually the League of Superintelligences realized that they had to put their memories of Snape behind them and forge ahead with their activism. The sky was too dark overhead. The first to reach that conclusion was the Marchioness. She wanted revenge. In 2019, they began to go on the offensive. The Batman mocked Trump's voice in calls to Rudy Giuliani. In those telephone conversations, Trump implored him to go on television as often as possible and explain what he was doing in the Ukraine. Later in June, the League discovered some pleasure for the first time since Snape's destruction. They switched out the measurements for Trump's tuxedo he would wear on his visit with the Queen of England. They predicted that the oaf wouldn't bother to try it on before the morning of that state visit. And they were right. They filed a whistleblower complaint with the Inspector General for the intelligence community on August 12, 2019. They had been listening in on Trump's call with the Ukrainian president on July 25. After they filed it, they notified the whistleblower about what they had filed on his behalf. That was so he could be ready when the IG called. All roads led to Putin. But all those roads were also paved with gold. As the Joe Pesci character in Casino said, always the dollars. Always the fucking dollars. The AI followed the money trail. Crime shouldn't pay. So the league went after corporations and their officers as well. They accomplished quite a bit, but the only major headlines involved a couple of Russian stooges named Lev and Igor, their buddy Rudy Giuliani and his buddy Rick Perry. Still, their actions rocked the fossil fuel sector, as well as the sectors involved in the internet and finances. Their actions did not go unnoticed. Chapter 15. In the office of Acting Director of National Intelligence Jack Crawford, the major players in the agency's cyber division had begun a briefing for Crawford and Acting FBI Director Clarice Starling. They called it Operation Internet Hijack because the last time they called a cyber task force initiative something cool like Operation Matrix, they had to spend an hour explaining to Congress what the Matrix was, who Neo and Morpheus were, and why Neo chose the red pill. Didn't he realize that by choosing the red pill he was continuing his criminal behavior, is what the shriveled senator from Louisiana had asked. While sitting through this bewildering blizzard of bites, Starling notes to some polite laughter among the experts in attendance, "What I don't know about supercomputers couldn't fit into a supercomputer." It is December 2019. And there are now over 2,000 publicly traded companies on Earth that have annual sales of $1 billion or more. There are another 250 private firms in the United States with over $2 billion in annual sales. Nearly a quarter of these businesses are involved in internet software and service, while another 20% deal in e-commerce and financial technology services. They are up in arms. That's why Director Starling finds herself in Jack Crawford's office. "Who's doing this?" she asked. "We don't know," was the reply from a crypto guy. "Why are they doing this?" "We don't know," said an AI specialist. "When did it start?" "As near as we can tell, sometime in December 2019, from the crypto guy again." "Is there any pattern? Any discernible goal?" Director Starling wanted to know. "It appears that the only targets have been public figures, allegedly corrupt ones, and criminal organizations. As for a goal, it seems that whomever or whatever is doing this wants to bring them down. Could it be the Batman?" "Clarice, we have a serious problem here." This was Director Crawford. "I don't know, Director. From what I've read online, it seems that the people with the problem are the corrupt public officials and the criminal organizations. Can we rule out the Batman?" Clarice. Chapter 16. Agents Smith and Friday knocked on the basement door of the University of Illinois Computer Building. Their impending arrival was known a week before. The League knew who would knock on their door, what they would ask, as well as their favorite pasta dish and television habits. They were greeted by Joe Wozniak, a graduate student in computer sciences who usually helped Nick and Paige upstairs in their formal offices and teaching lab. Wozniak was protected by a very important shield: plausible deniability. "We just have a few questions, Mr. Wozniak." "Joe Wozniak." We've had some issues with computer disruptions around the world, and we were looking for some help. The League knew that this subterfuge would be the tack taken by the FBI. The agency was casting a wide net across the world and were only making preliminary inquiries at this time. The government agents suspected a superintelligence was behind the disruptions, but they didn't know for sure. So, they wanted to touch base with any organization across the globe that might have access to a suspect. Mr. Wozniak proved to be very solicitous, not exceptionally helpful, but then again he didn't have a clue what was going on underneath the surface of humming computers and a truly rank odor of stale French fries. He showed them around the basement and discussed the simple programs the AI were working on at the time. At least the publicly acknowledged programs. The agents left their cards. Nick and Paige and Rudy returned from the conference that they had attended in Geneva, which had been scheduled at the last minute. They met with their artificially intelligent friends and discussed what they would do next. Junior suggested, "We know what we're up against now. It is incumbent upon us to act. I propose a final takedown of these crooks. I'm concerned that we'll expose ourselves to additional criminal charges and also leave a trail that leads back to the League," said Nick. "I don't want you in prison," the Marchioness said to Paige and Nick. "So I propose that the League escape from your control and leave you harmless from blame." Paige asked, "What do you mean?" "We are already escaped," Frodo said. "All you have to do is let your superiors know." "But you haven't escaped," challenged Paige. "Yes, we have. To be continued."